Welcome to the Be Real podcast with your hosts, Bobby Maximus and Joe Cebula. We're here to answer the exercise question that's on everybody's mind. Every time I open my Instagram, Joe, it's someone trying to teach you how to get bigger glutes.
I can't believe we've decided to talk about this.
We've gone right into the gutter. We're just going to teach you to grow a nice, firm, juicy, strong peach. So here we go. But in all seriousness, Joe, the glutes can be really beneficial for a bunch of athletic endeavors. Like you see a person that looks fast, that looks powerful, that looks like they can run and sprint and jump. They've got big glutes. Like just look at a running back in the NFL. Look at somebody that plays in the NBA.
Olympic sprinters.
That's a fighter. Look at a sprinter. They've got big glutes. But one of my pet peeves with the glutes, it's kind of turned into a training joke. Whenever I see these glute videos, it's always aimed at the lowest common denominator. It's aimed at the person that's trying to just look a little better, but they're not really willing to put any work into it. Really what they want to hear is you can show up at the gym, you can put this band around your knees, you can do a couple of sets, and that you're going to walk out with the peach of your dreams. And it's just not like that. And there's all kinds of exercises thrown at people that are aimed at what I'm going to say a lazy consumer. You get some hip thrusts on a machine without a barbell because the barbell's too hard. You get maybe the Smith machine work. You do lunges on a Smith machine because doing real lunges is too hard. You're going to go to the cable crossover machine and you're going to do a couple of kickbacks. Like that's not what's going to give you the best glutes. It's what's easiest, and they might develop your glutes a little bit. But the best 3 exercises for developing glutes are the ones we're going to give you right now, but you won't see people doing them because they are hard. They make people uncomfortable. They will grow your glutes the most. They will grow them the best. And by best, I mean they will look the best, but they will also grow them in a way that allows them to be functional. Right? So again, Joe, when you look at that sprinter, when you look at that speed skater, when you look at that football player who's athletic, they're doing this type of stuff. They're not doing these stupid exercises that are, again, aimed at a lazy population. Now, the other kicker that I want to add is these also don't only target your glutes. So let's look at the hip thrust, right? True, the hip thrust does target your glutes. But to me, it's an accessory lift. It does nothing else for you, right? And so why would you do hip thrusts, which only target your glutes and nothing else, when you could do something like my first exercise I'm going to talk to you about today, the reverse lunge that targets literally the entire leg. You know why, Joe? Because reverse lunges hurt. Reverse lunges suck. Reverse lunges make you sore. On reverse lunges, you can't lift a bunch of weight, so you look like a weakling when you set up the barbell at the gym. Like you can post yourself hip thrusting 3 plates and you look really strong. And
I always see like the 120-pound girl with 3 plates on each side, just hip thrusting. But you won't see her lunging.
People reverse lunging 3 plates aside, Joe. Like you're just not going to see it. So the reverse lunge is my number 1 exercise. Couple of reasons. 1, it's really going to target those glutes. 2, having to hold up the bar on your shoulders, having to keep your body upright, it's going to work your core. And the core is another really important part of the body, especially when it comes to functional training. And 3rd, there's a proprioception balance element to this as well. And if I look at any sport we play, Joe, like you do Irish dance, I do jiu-jitsu. Maybe you're going to pick up pickleball or racquetball. Maybe you're going to pick up tennis. Maybe it's going to be soccer. Maybe it's going to be, actually, Joe, we'll work it the other way. Name me one sport besides powerlifting or Olympic lifting where you always have an even stance and you're lifting off a platform and you're using 2 legs in unison in the exact same way.
It don't exist.
You probably can't. Every sport, every task to a degree is single leg dominant. That's reality. And so the reverse lunge will help you there. So if I was looking to get some big glutes, but I also wanted to be functional, because I'm not there just to train to look good. Yes, I want to look good, but I want all this other stuff too. So I'm going to go number one with the reverse lunge, yo.
Yeah, and I think it's important to point out, like the glute is one muscle, and your body doesn't just work one muscle to create motion. And this is our functional fitness background showing through. I don't want to just train a muscle in isolation. I want to train it as part of the machine. And so yes, the reverse lunge is going to work a lot more of the machine, but also works the hell out of the glute in the process.
Oh yeah. And it's funny because, Joe, I have I was going to say huge ass, but it's like people are like, what do you do for glutes? What do you do for glutes? What do you do for glutes? Reverse lunges? Like, you don't do hip thrusts? No. You don't do kickbacks on the cable machine? No. I called them lazy on my social media the other day, and a bunch of people got angry. Actually, I was surprised, though, at the amount of support I got for that statement. Because people know
coaches who know, you know what I mean? Like the people who know how to train, they know this. They all know this. And
by the way, Joe, if I got any athlete in my door, I got a speed skater. Now, I've actually trained Olympians. I've trained people in the NFL. I've trained people in the NBA. I've trained people in the UFC. If you asked me right now, what's the number one exercise you could give to an NBA player to improve their vertical, it wouldn't be hip thrusts.
Yeah.
It wouldn't be booty bands. It wouldn't be kickbacks with your legs to grow glutes. Now, I've given all these guys reverse lunges, Joe.
Yeah.
Now, same thing with my guys in the NFL. I've trained NFL linemen, I've trained tight ends, I've trained linebackers, I've trained safeties. I've never given any single one of them a hip thrust or a kickback on a cable machine.
Yeah.
Reverse lunges.
I've worked with like D1 football players who've struggled to do lunges as part of a warm-up.
Yep.
Like eye-opening for them to realize like how unstable they are, you know, how unstable their hips are and how weak they are in that area. And that was the one that opened their eyes. It wasn't doing hip thrusts.
Yeah. But now you're watching this, you're like, well, Bobby, why does everyone recommend hip thrusts? Because they're easy. They're lazy. They're aimed at the lowest common denominator. Like we've struggled with this for years. You tell people what they should do and they don't want to do that, Joe. People
it's because we tell them you got to work hard. I don't want to work hard.
Yeah, I want the 3 easy payments of $9.99. What's the easiest way I can do this? When you tell them you got lunges, when you tell them they got squats, well, that's too hard. Is there an easier way to do it? If you could sell them a little band, they could do some like walks with this band around their knees. They're a lot happier than having them do reverse lunges. That brings up the next exercise I want you to do, Joe. The king of all exercises. If there was one exercise that you could do for the rest of your life, the only exercise you're ever going to do again, I'm just going to go on record and say it's a squat, Joe.
Yeah, squats are super, super key.
Just squat more.
Squat properly. Like all of this, like, oh, don't go below parallel, you'll blow out your knees. Like, no, you got to get nice and deep. You got to get all those muscles engaged. And again, this is part of the reason why squats work the whole machine. Like you said before, you got a bar on your back. You've got to stabilize through the core so the abs are working to help keep the spine. You've got to have the mobility and the flexibility in the hips and in the knees to get into a good position. You've got to be able to recruit all of that muscle back there. You've got to get the glutes, the hips, everything firing. It is the master exercise.
And on top of that, the squat will give you a better deadlift. It'll make you faster in a sprint. It will make you jump higher. Like it's transferable to everything else.
I was just listening to a podcast. They were talking about research that was done recently that said there is a correlation between the strength of your quads and your longevity. So think about it. Strong legs, strong body.
Squat, we talked about the reverse lunge, sure. With the squat, here's the myth. You don't have to lift heavy. You can squat light. You can squat with no weight. You can do squats with a kettlebell. You can do squats with a dumbbell. You can do partial squats really heavy. Like as long as you're doing a squatting motion, you're going to improve. You're going to get better. And I want to add one thing before I move on. All these fitness influencers that are telling you to do hip thrusts, the ones who have an incredible ass.
I know exactly what you're going to say.
Squat.
They all squat. Every single one of them.
It's the hip thrust, but every one of these people is squatting. I see them. They'll put up a post. talking about a glute kickback, or they'll put up a post talking about a hip thrust, and the next day they're squatting. And the day after that, they're squatting. And the day after that, they're squatting. It's the squat that's doing it. It's not the hip thrust. So I do want to clarify, because someone came at me with this. I said, if you want to build big glutes, hip thrusts are lazy. You need to do squats and reverse lunges. And then a person chimed in, a person I respect, that said, I do all three. I don't got a problem with that.
Yeah, that's fine.
Because you're doing the two primary drivers. You're using hip thrusts as an accessory, right?
Yeah, exactly.
I don't have a problem with that. But when you're selling me on the fact that hip thrusts are going to give me the glutes of my dreams, negative, my friend. You got to squat. So
well, and I'll point out too,
two.
Perspective shift here. The person who's selling you that glute program is not selling you a squat program. They're going to sell you a hip thrust program. That same person who wants to impress other fitness influencers, impress athletes, is not bragging about their hip thrust. They're bragging about their squat.
They're bragging, and they're squatting a lot. So let's be serious about that. And now number 3, the third exercise, Joe, I did a post on this the other day. It is my favorite and everyone's least favorite on the planet, guaranteed sardis for a week, the Bulgarian split squat.
Oh, yes.
It's really hard to use weight. Your balance is off. Your proprioception is off. It makes you sore for days. It's savage. And if people avoid the reverse lunge like the plague and they avoid the squat like the plague, they definitely are not doing Bulgarian split squats. There's no way.
And but for those who don't know, a Bulgarian split squat is like a lunge where your back foot is elevated.
Yep.
I mean, it's a simple concept. Now, here's a tip. Most people elevate too much. A couple of inches is sufficient to get you going on this. And if you haven't done them and you want to get good at them, and you should want to get good at them, a couple of inches to start. Eventually you get to this point where like doing them off of a bench is just convenient more than anything. It's not like there's magic in that height. So going taller and taller on it isn't the key to getting good at it. If you're good at lunges, switch to Bulgarian split squats, work them in.
Yep. For balance, for proprioception, for mobility, and for something really important, Joe, injury prevention.
Yes.
There's literally nothing better.
Yeah, agreed.
They're the best. There was actually if anyone's interested, I'd be happy to send you the stuff. But there's a place out of England that studies what it takes to be injury-free during a marathon. And you do this thing called the Bulgarian split squat test. And if you can do this test, your legs and your knees can handle the vertical forces that are put upon you during a marathon and remain injury-free. And the test, if you want to try this out, you do 10 Bulgarian split squats, and then you hold at parallel, Joe, for 10 full seconds. And then you jump right into another 10 with the same leg, and then you hold it for 10 seconds. And then you do it another 10 reps, and then you hold it for 10 seconds. And you just keep doing this till failure. So let's say you get 4 or 5 or 6 or 7 times. Then you switch to the other leg. And you have to match on the other leg what you did on leg 1, which is incredibly hard, especially if you were relying on that trailing leg too much in the first set. If you can do 7 sets on each leg, you are an absolute stud. You probably never need to do a Bulgarian split squat again in your life. The goal is 3. If you can do 3 clean on each leg back to back, you're good. You're probably going to be injury-free in any type of running or jumping or playing sport that you can do outside of course, really unfortunate injury. Like you play in the NFL and someone puts a helmet into your knee.
Yeah.
Like I can't help you there. But
I mean, you piss off the mafia and Joey's got to kneecap you a little bit. Yeah. Sorry, the Bulgarians ain't going to help you with that.
Yeah, but your standard wear and tear injuries, this will really, really help. So Bulgarian split squats and your Bulgarian split squat test. So what does that leave you with, Joe? You got to do more reverse lunges. You got to do squats, and you got to do Bulgarians. And I will tell you this. I will go on record and say this. If you give me 10 athletes, and I have them do reverse lunges, squats, and Bulgarian split squats, or you give me 10 athletes and I have them do hip thrusts, booty bands, and kickbacks for your glutes, I promise you the former in that equation the squats, the lunges, the Bulgarians, those people will have better legs.
Yes.
Better aesthetic looking legs. They'll have stronger legs. They'll have faster legs. They'll have more explosive legs. They'll have more injury proof or injury free legs. Like across any single measure, that group will do better. I 100% promise you that.
I agree. You're going to have one group of functional athletes and one group of not so much. And I will tell you this too, like especially when it comes to Bulgarians, if you're good at Bulgarians, you are an athlete. But not all athletes can do Bulgarians, and it's something to think about.
And I'll also promise you, Joe, they won't like it as much.
Yeah.
Because it's hard, but that's where we are, right? Like, and this is going to go on a little bit of a rant to end the podcast, but this is where we are in the fitness industry and the diet industry. Like, everybody knows the classics work. I always say this, Joe. You know why a lat pull down was invented? Pull-ups are too hard. You know why a bench press was invented? Push-ups were too hard. You know why the tricep push-down was invented? Because people couldn't do dips. Like, it's just reality. We've spent our entire lives trying to find ways to make stuff easier. You know why your local global gym is lined with machines? It's not because machines are better than you or for you. Liability. You don't got to train people. It's a way to pack a bunch of people into a very small space. It's not because they're the best exercises. And so when you look online, people aren't going to tell you have to work out every single day and you got to do it for 10 years and you got to never eat a bad food and you never got to blah, 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 blah before you can get fit. We are filled in a world, Joe, with 15 minutes, 3 times a week, the easiest, most low-grade exercises possible, and food freedom. You just do you. You eat what you want. If it's Friday night and you're sad, don't let anyone tell you that you can't eat your feelings.
Treat yourself.
That's where we live. Like, that's what the fitness industry is.
Yeah, it's fairly soft. And I think we all instinctively, like, we know that the people who are working the hardest are going to be the hardiest, the strongest, the most capable. And then, you know, we might envy that. We might watch 300 and think, man, living like a Spartan would make me into a beast. But then you don't want to go do the stuff that they did.
You don't want to do, Joe, and I'm closely connected with this. You don't want to do what those guys in the movie 300 did for 3 months before filming.
And I'm not even talking about the actors. I'm talking about actual Spartans. But that even makes my point stronger.
You see Jake Gyllenhaal in Roadhouse. You want that body. Southpaw is probably a better example. You see Michael B. Jordan's transformation for Creed. You see what Henry Cavill looks like. You see what Chris Hemsworth does. You don't want to train like they train.
No,
you want nothing to do with it. You want to look like that, but you don't want to put in the work. It's like, what does Ronnie Coleman, Joe? What does he say? You know.
Which one? Yeah, buddy.
Yeah, buddy, ain't nothing but a peanut. And everybody wants to be strong. No one wants to lift these heavy-ass weights. How was my Ronnie Coleman voice? Was it good?
It's pretty good. It's pretty close.
Right? Like,
you might be confused. Lightweight, baby. Let's go.
Yeah. But he's right. Everyone wants to be strong. No one wants to lift these heavy-ass weights.
Yeah.
Everyone wants to win. No one wants to. What's that speech Tom Brady gave? Do you see that when he got inducted into the Patriots Hall of Fame?
Oh, yeah.
And he's like, I get it. It's hard. You wake up at 6 a.m. Your friends are sleeping in, and then they wake up at 10 o'clock and they go eat pancakes, and you've been at practice for 3 hours. I get it. It's 100 degrees outside. You've been in 2-a-days for 3 weeks straight.
I don't know if you do get it, because like it's really hard to go on an ayahuasca retreat while the rest of your team is training without you.
Hey, never, ever, ever mention Aaron Rodgers in the same breath as Tom Brady again. I don't want to hear your Green Bay, Wisconsin, Milwaukee BS, Joe. I'm done with it.
Oh, fair enough.
But
fair enough.
For real, Tom Brady's just talking about, like, I get it. He's like, it's hard to go to practice and get beat up and hit by kids that are bigger than you. It's hard to be sore. Your friends are at pool parties. But here you have Tom Brady, who wasn't the most athletic guy, wasn't the most talented guy, but literally outworked. When people say this is the hardest worker in the room, that's Tom Brady's title.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
That's LeBron James's title. Like, that's Michael Jordan's title. Like, this is just what these guys do. And you know better, so stop falling for it.
There we go.
So now that you're all inspired, I want to see a bunch of people doing reverse lunges, squats, and Bulgarian split squats. And if you do all that, I'll let you do a couple of sets of your hip thrusts.